When I first met Paul, the owner of a printing business, he was spending 60 hours a week stuck in his business and felt completely unable to work on the business rather than in it. And worse, he was unclear on where to even start to free up his time. So I asked him, where do you spend your time currently? And we identified in particular one activity that he was spending 3 hours per day on, that's 15 hours per week, which was sending quotes to customers. And he said that he knew it needed handing over, but thought that it would probably take 8 hours just to document it. Never mind then hand it over and train the team and all that kind of stuff. So I said, well, we've got 45 minutes left on this call. Let's see what we can do. And I'll show you how we did this live on the call using AirManual. So you can see I've created a new page in AirManual within a sales folder and a demo company workspace. So let's start off with giving it a good title. So we're going to say send quotes to customers, and then underneath we can then give some explanation of what's the context, when should this process be used, what matters most. So when a potential customer reaches out to request a quote, and we explain what's the context, when should this process be used, and so on. Then we can add in high-level steps. So down here you can see we've got these various features. We'll start off with this one here, which is to add a guided checklist. We say that this gives your page superpowers. If I add this here, you can see that really quickly now I can add the high-level steps that are going to be involved. So for example, I might say that you need to open the request for quote and review the details, and we might have capture customer information. We might have enter the details into our CRM if that's not automated. We might have enter the details into our quoting system, which might be just a spreadsheet, and then calculate the at cost quote, and then we might have a step which is add fees and profit margin. And finally, prepare quote to share with customer. And then perhaps we want a review step. I remember in the case with Paul, and this is quite common for quotes, particularly early on when you first hand this stuff over, you want to be able to get someone else in the team to share it for review, because you don't know whether it's going to be perfect each time. When we're talking about quoting, it's a risky area, because if you underprice a project, you can find that you're making no profit on it or even making a loss. So let's include a step here, which is share quote for review with head of sales. And then after approval, send quote to customer. And then perhaps as a final step, we want create task in CRM to follow up on quote. So you can see really quickly in less than 3 minutes at a high level, we've now got what are the key steps to follow. Now, there might be some areas where there's tricky bits or logic that needs adding in. For example, maybe entering the details into the quoting system, maybe that's not obvious on how to do. So maybe we're going to create some sub steps. So you can see here, we can add checkboxes so it might be open the XYZ tab, then enter in the exact so there might be a series of other steps in here, right? Perhaps up here, perhaps we want to capture the customer information, so to make it easy to track where we're at in this checklist when it's being followed. So here you can see I've got some other options. I can capture text input. I'm going to change this to short text and have customer name as the detail here. And in fact, I'm going to make that the very first step. So I'm just going to drag that up there. Then we've got open the request for the quote and review the details. So I'm going to create a long text question here, which is key details for the quote. Perhaps we want to provide some guidance on what information they need to provide. So you can see that down here, we've got add help blocks. I've just added one in here. I can change the color, for example, to make this one green and say the key information we need depends on the product you're looking for. And then perhaps we have different categories. So we might say for clothing, we need, and then we might put in bullet points for we need X, Y, and dimensions. Maybe for vans, we need make, model, and color, and so on. So you can provide that additional information in there, and we could either put those as numbered lists or bulleted lists here. So there we go, so we've got some key details there. Now there might be things where perhaps there's some options that we want to capture. So maybe add fees and profit margin. Maybe we want to add some multiple choice options here. So which fees apply? And I want to make this a select multiple choices so that someone can say, yes, delivery fees apply, stitching, other things that might rush fees. So there might be various things that you have to select to identify what there is. And again, we might provide some help contents to make sure you have identified all of the fees that will apply. And then there might be some additional guidance in here explaining perhaps we've had an issue in the past where the customer doesn't necessarily realize there needs to be rush fees, but they've said, oh yeah, I need this tomorrow or whatever it is. So you could perhaps provide that guidance in there to help people avoid making mistakes in future. What else might we need to do? Prepare and share the quote with the customer. Maybe perhaps it's a little bit complex, like how do you copy the right information to the right place? So we might embed a video in here. I haven't got a video handy, but you could say that there's YouTube, Loom, Wistia, MS Stream, etc. Where do I know for sure that there's some great videos? Of course, De-Stress Your Business. Here's one that we did on iterating with the sales process. I'm going to get this URL for the, there we go, get this URL for the video. And so in here, we can put the video link in. There we go. So you can see, imagine if that was a video of showing how to get the quote to share with the customer, we've then embedded that video and that's playable in the process. Perhaps for sharing the quote for the review, maybe we want to give them a message that they can use to send it with them. So it might say, share with head of finance via, could be via an email, could be via Slack message. Let's go for a Slack message or, or whatever is appropriate. And we might provide a template using this template. Hi, Steve, I've prepared this quote, for customer name. Please review, and then link. So this just makes it a little bit faster for whoever's following the process. They can copy and paste that in. It means that perhaps some people have provided quotes to this head of sales before, but haven't made it clear which quote or where to find it. So as a result, we've included it in this template to make sure that mistake doesn't get made in future because it slows things down. We could include screenshots. So maybe if there's a complex part as part of entering the details into the CRM, maybe you could use the screenshot feature to add an image, or alternatively, just going to grab a bit of screenshot here and just paste that straight in. So you can see that's really quick, and we can make that, move it around on the page as well if it doesn't need to be full size. Click, so we can have all of that in. Yeah, those are all the key features that we've covered from here. If we needed to, we could have another guided checklist below and we could give this a title. So for example, we might have follow up on quote if that was appropriate to have that as part of this same checklist. Then again, you might say, no, actually that needs to be a checklist all on its own. So we can remove that one out. We might include some of those fields, perhaps capturing the customer information. Perhaps we wanted to put that in the document rather than in the step. That would be an option as well. Maybe we also need to collect other field details, like when we enter the details in the quoting system, maybe we want to get them to capture quote reference number. There we go, and I'll put this as a little field down here. There we go. And so let's say that we're now happy. So, when we worked with Paul, the printing business owner, and we've done this with many clients now, we'll very quickly help them document a process at enough detail that it could then be followed. And that doesn't mean you need detail in every single step, and you don't need screenshots for everything and so on. You just need enough that someone can actually follow the process. Once we've got that, we can hit publish, and now we can actually test this process. So what we did with Paul, I remember going through this exercise, and it took less than 30 minutes to get the entire process documented with all that detail. So not 8 hours, and still got that done in 30 minutes, and then arranged a follow-up session with this account management team, who we then sat down with them and said, okay, open this up. They click use this checklist, and then they're able to follow the process along. So for example, they sat down with an example quote and they followed these steps. For example, to say ABC company, key details for the quote. So let's say it's 100 times medium-sized shirts, printed front and back in color. Shirts or shorts? Let's go for shirts. front and back. And then enter the details and CRM, great, done that, yeah, done this, done this, done this, yeah, fine. Quote number is 0001, yeah, done. I don't have to tick these off, by the way, I'm just a bit of a completionist, but I can just click done, and let's say stitching and rush fees apply, and maybe there's video. You can see where videos can be good, but use them sparingly because you don't want to have someone to have to watch a video every single time. Videos are normally better in training checklists that might cover like, here's how to do a sales call or whatever, and watch a recording of one. But if it's quick, maybe it's there, but it's better normally to have it as a series of steps like we've got for other things. So then we've got these, then okay, great, I can now share this with Steve and so on. Now let's say at some point I get stuck like, do I need to send this with Steve? Steve mentioned that he was fed up of getting too many quotes because it was low value. So we might say, actually, we discuss it with Steve and we say it only needs to, if value is over £500, then share the quote for review with the head of sales. Great, publish. Now this not only updates our template, but actually it updates any active checklist. So if I go up here and go to view data, you can see here's that checklist that I was working through for ABC company, quote number 1. You can see 7 of 10 steps done. If I click on that, we can pick up where we left off and you can see, here's that update to the step. I didn't spot that I made a typo, we can fix that too, but what I'll do before I do that is start another checklist. So let's say I now need to do another quote, perhaps it's a rush job, so we're jumping on that one, XYZ company, and I'm just going to skip a couple of steps and put this in. And so now if I go to view data, you'll see I've now got both. I've got the one for XYZ company, I can see where I've got missed steps. Here's the one for ABC, I can click and pick up where I left off and so on. Now once they complete the whole thing, and again, let's say that I can miss that and just click complete, we get some confetti. If I go back to view data, I can see, yep, this one's completed, 9 out of 10 steps done, and any data that we've collected is all in this table to the right here, which can be exported as well. So you can see really quickly we were able, with Paul and his team, to get to a point where they were quite happy and able to run these quotes and be able to take that work off him, which instantly saved him 15 hours per week after handing over one process. That's 780 hours per year that he was then able to use for more high value adding tasks rather than on this admin. And of course, they've been able to iterate and improve it over time. But what's amazing is that yes, it saved him up a load of time. But the other thing that's fantastic is that previously it would have taken this business owner, this busy business owner, probably 2 to 3 days to respond to a request for a quote. Whereas following the process, his account managers were then able to do it in an hour or under an hour. Imagine what that means for your conversion rate, right? If you go to 2 printing companies and ask them for quotes and one comes back in an hour and the other one takes 2 to 3 days, which one are you going to go with, right? So that was incredible for him. So it saved all that time. It increased the conversion rate, which, you know, paid for even the account manager's time and so on, and just in the conversion rate improvement. But also, that isn't where he stopped, because of course, having experienced how quickly you can get this stuff documented and handed over, he repeated that over and over again, working with us over a period of 9 months, and got to a point where he is no longer required day-to-day in that business. So that's going from 60 hours per week stuck in the business doing day-to-day to 0 stuck day-to-day. And so his entire time can be focused either on enjoying what he loves, but quite often on high-value tasks, on building the business, working on the business, growing it, rather than being stuck in it. So I hope that inspires you to find those tasks that are taking up time, get them documented really quickly using what we've got, because it makes an absolutely huge difference when you do. Did you find that video useful? In which case, hit subscribe, and here's some other videos we think you might like. This one in particular.